Please welcome Perry Marshall.
Good evening. How you guys all doing tonight? It's great to have you here. I'm going to share with you, this presentation I'm giving you. It's partly, something that's on my heart that people need to know about, and a lot of it also is kind of a personal story of kind of hammering things out on my own. I think that if you're in this room, it has something to do with the fact that you're an inquiring, probing person, that you're curious, that you want to know how things tick and what makes things work and what's true and what's not true. And you want to go a little deeper into the big questions than maybe most people do. That's what this forum has always been about. And I'm one of those people. And, I used to drive my dad nuts because I would ask him questions about everything. Like, Dad, how does a car work? I have no idea, Perry. Like, you asked me that last week. You asked me that the week before. How does a radio work? I don't know. Ask somebody else. And I bet there would be a very high quotient in here of people that just ask too many questions and are too curious and won't mind their own business and sticking their nose into stuff. And so what I'm going to talk about here tonight, this is a presentation called The 7 Great Lies of Organized Religion. And this talk started out as a website, and it still is. It's at coffeehousetheology.com. This is a website I put up about 2.5 years ago. And I had two motives in putting this website up. And this is kind of where the personal journey comes in. One motive was, I've seen a lot of problems in Christianity, in the church, in religion, in spirituality, and they always have something to do with a free spirit that starts out being very inspired, and then somebody makes like a plaster cast of it, and then says, okay, that's what everybody's supposed to do. That's what everybody's supposed to look like. And it turns into a whole bunch of rules, and it gets encrusted with all these barnacles. And after a while, it's totally unrecognizable. And a lot of people confuse that with spirituality. They see that, and they see how ugly it is and how confining it is. And they get so disgusted, they turn and run the other way. And so I put together a series of emails. 7 emails called 7 Great Lies of Organized Religion. And if you go to this website, coffeehousetheology.com, there's only one thing you can do. Or there's 2 things you can do. You can either sign up or leave. Because there's just a little sign up page. You scroll down and you enter your name and your email address, and the messages start to come. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna get people to come to this website, and if they think this sounds interesting, the unvarnished truth about religion, Christianity, and spirituality in 2006, 7 great myths of organized religion. And if they want to put in their email address and they want to get the series, then what's going to happen is if they have a question, a disagreement, if they think I'm smart, they think I'm an idiot, whatever the case is, if they reply to the email, I'll get it. And we'll start conversations that way. And in the last 2 years, 50,000 people have gone through this. And I think every one of them sent me an email. Fortunately, not all of them. But this has provoked so many discussions and so many conversations and so many angles. I think, people have hit me with every imaginable thing. And I said there was 2 reasons why I did this. The second reason was this. The second reason was, deep down, I wanted to know, if I take the most basic, essential message that Jesus was really trying to get across, if I distill it down to the core elements, and I put it out there, am I going to find somebody who pokes the hole in it and proves that it ain't true? I wanted to know. Okay? Because, I don't know, maybe it's the way I'm wired, maybe it's like, you know what, I think questions ought to have real answers, and when you poke at them, you ought to find a solid center. And you shouldn't be satisfied till you get to the center. You shouldn't be satisfied till you get an answer. Not that we all think that we're going to find the answer to every question in the world, but that truth should stand up for itself. And if it can't, then let's find out, like, right now. Can you all relate to that? Like, okay, if Christianity is not true, let's find out now. Not like when we're on our deathbed or something, we wish we would have done something else. Right? And I was like, okay, I want to find out. So I'm going to put this out there, and I'm going to sort of open myself up to every imaginable, objection that can come along, and every single person that's going to tell me how stupid this is, and we're going to find out. And so what I'm going to present to you today is based on this journey. And well, obviously, like Andy said, we're going to have a Q&A session in the second part, and happy to take your questions, whatever they are. Bring them on. Looking forward to it. So anyway, lie number one. If you live a moral life, deny yourself pleasure, follow the prescribed rituals, and give us enough money, you'll have a decent shot at being accepted by God. That's number one. Now, you know what? I think this is what most people think religion is. Why do they think that's what religion is? Because that's what it usually is. Right? How many of you remember The Wizard of Oz? Great scene at the end of the movie. The Wizard of Oz is bellowing through the speakers and issuing all these commands and telling them all this stuff they're supposed to do. I am the great and powerful Oz. And then Toto runs over and finds the curtain and pulls the curtain aside. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. I am the great and powerful Oz. Right? But you know what? Toto exposed the whole game. Right? And that's like a metaphor for a whole lot of things. And it's definitely a metaphor for religion. It's like if people put themselves up on a pedestal, and they look nice, and they got the right kind of suit, and they say the right kinds of things, and they send out everybody else to do Mission Impossible, and like they're in a hotel room with a stripper. And then you wonder why people are cynical. Shouldn't people be cynical if that's what's going on? Well, some things never change. 2,000 years ago, spirituality had been buried in a pile of bureaucracy and rules and regulations, and you got to do this, and you got to look like this, and everything's got to be just so. People use this to gain leverage. If you wanted, best seats in the choice restaurants, and you wanted to line your pockets with cash, and you wanted respectful greetings in the marketplace, well, hello, Rabbi Joe. How are you? Right? That was a way to get it. Well, they had everybody thinking that pleasing God was this performance marathon, but Jesus painted a totally different picture. Jesus said, 2 men went up to the temple to pray. One was a holy man. The other one was a tax collector. The holy man stood and prayed, God, I thank you that I'm not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this lousy tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all I get. But the tax collector, standing far away, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. And Jesus explains, I tell you, this tax collector went home forgiven rather than the holy man. For everyone who praises himself will be humbled, but he who humbles himself will be praised. Beware of the holy man that hangs a bunch of rules around your neck. And the humble tax collector, he had the right idea, because he knew that the way to get right with God was to be humble before God and not be full of pretense and not be full of rules, to know that he was not matching up to the standard, and to come clean. Let's talk about number 2. God is huge and unapproachable, and He wants you to labor, struggle, and live in guilt. Now, 2,000 years ago, once again, things were not really different. And back then, people would not pronounce God's name. They used the letters YHWH, which was like an unpronounceable symbol to express God. And God was distant and remote and unreachable. But Jesus totally turned over the apple cart. Jesus had His own words for God. They were controversial. They were scandalous. He used words like daddy. Like nobody, now you got to understand, that doesn't sound really strange to us, but to them it was like totally bizarre. Who's this guy talking about God like He's daddy? Who's this your heavenly Father? So, when the religious Gestapo condemned him for hanging out with prostitutes and tax collectors and all kinds of ruffians and party people, he told a story. And here's the story he told. He says, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, Dad, I wish you were dead. This is the Perry revised version, okay? Dad, I wish you were dead. Why don't we pretend you're dead and give me my share of the family estate? So the father divided his property between them. Now, when that says property, that doesn't mean like he went to the bank and took all the money out or half the money out and gave it to the son. You know what it means? He sold his land. Now, are Palestinians uppity about land? You know, is land like really close to the jugular if you're from the Middle East? It's your family identity. It's a family farm. It's been in the family for centuries. Now, we have no concept of this, but I was in rural China. I've never really been to the Middle East, so I can't tell you Middle East stories. But I was in rural China at this little farm on the Yangtze River, and the guy told me that his house was 660 years old. Whoa. That is an old house. Now you think that would mean a lot to a family, right? So what does this son do? Sells it. A total disgrace to his family. A few days later, disrespectful son packed his bags, headed for distant land. He squandered his inheritance on wine, women, and song, and we had spent everything. You know, I'm picturing, he's probably got all kinds of friends that like to gamble. It's like, well, $100 on this one, and like the money's just disappearing. Hey, I know you're